Hi there. How's it going? Welcome to curry. This is our next class, and today we're going to make a delicious, flavorful chicken curry. Dead simple, but really an amazing dish to have in your arsenal. Now, I want to tell you something about curry. Curry is infinitely adaptable. So, once you've completed our 30-day course, then we can start to talk a little bit about adapting and improvising and how you can add to certain dishes. But when we talk about adapting and improvising, curry is one of those ones that is just so easy to modify and change up a little bit and get a different meal. So let's get started. We're going to start with some red bell pepper. You can use green pepper, orange pepper. You can leave the pepper out. Mostly the curry is about the sauce. And my daughter, Riley, loves a really soupy curry. So she likes a lot of sauce and not so much the chicken and vegetables in it. So I always try to make it a little soupy. And for me, a simple curry served over rice is amazing. And I'm all about the sauce like my daughter. So soupy is attractive to me as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up this onion, this whatever it is, pepper, and into smaller pieces. And these will kind of cook up and almost disappear in the sauce, but that's okay because when you have something like this, every bit that you add contributes to the flavor. So even if you're not getting a chunk of peppers, you're still contributing to the flavor. So we have some chopped peppers. We're going to chop some onion. These are just bits that I had in my fridge, so I may as well use them rather than cut something new up. All right, and we've already had the class on chopping onions and peppers, so you know how to do this. You're an expert at this because you've been at it for a bit. Chop that up. Onions are important because onions really add a lot of flavor. And, you know, when my kids were little, they hated onions. And if I put onions in something, they wouldn't eat it. And specifically chowder, if I made a chowder, there would be onions and they'd say, "Mom, we don't like the shiny stuff." But then I learned to just chop them up really small because they really do contribute to the flavor. So if you have a thing about onions or you know somebody that you're cooking for who doesn't like onions, chop it up really small, even grate it, but onions add to the flavor. You can't taste a specific onion. Once everything's simmered together, it all just tastes like one dish, but it contributes to the flavor. All right, so now we have chicken. I've chosen chicken thighs because I think the texture, the flavor of the chicken thighs works beautifully with a curry. So I'm just going to chop them into sort of bigger chunks. I always say I'm going to do that, and the chunks are not that big, but I want to chop them into bigger chunks because it just works for a curry. And you know what? I could absolutely do these whole if you don't want to handle the chicken, if you feel like handling raw chicken is disgusting, which a lot of people do, you could absolutely leave it whole and it wouldn't be a problem. You just want to make sure it's cooked through, but we're going to simmer it for at least 20 minutes. And if you're using a whole chicken thigh or a whole chicken breast, then 20 minutes simmering is more than enough to make sure that it's cooked. All right. But I do recommend cutting it into chunks. It's easier to eat that way too. And then it becomes a one utensil meal. One plate. Okay, that's cut up. So we've cut up our chicken thighs. Okay, next we are going to chop up the garlic. All right. And again, we have learned to chop up garlic already, so this is not a new procedure. It's kind of a funny looking one. I'm going to just get rid of that. So we're using 2 cloves of garlic. I think 2 is good. 1 would be fine. 3 might be going a little overboard. But because the flavors of a curry are so powerful, I should say, that you really want to have the presence of garlic. So you want to make sure you use a good whack of garlic. Garlic is one of those aromatics that just adds to the flavor of any dish. And much like onion, it will get absorbed and incorporated into the flavor and contribute to the flavor, but you will not taste the individual garlic. That's probably just about good enough. There we go. Chopped garlic. Okay, now I need my spatula. I need any spatulas not there. I'll use this wooden spoon, non-stick pan. Okay, we're ready to rock and or roll. We're going to put approximately 2 tablespoons of oil in the frying pan. And we want it to really saute and brown a bit. So I put it on 8 out of 9 for the temperature. Yep, I can feel the heat. Got it. Okay. Awesome. I like to spread it around, the oil around the pan, to make sure there's a thin coating all over the pan. This is a non-stick pan, but it's still nice because sometimes non-stick pans sort of lose their integrity. So it's good to have a little bit of the oil to help keep the pan released. Okay, so it looks like it's sizzling, it's warm. So we're going to add the chicken. And remember what I always say, keep it in a single layer. Don't crowd it in the pan because then it will start to steam or boil and not saute. When you saute any sort of meat, it releases the natural sugars from the meat, browns it in the pan, and that adds a depth of flavor that's really important. In French, they call it the souks, S-U-C-S, and it's browning is a really important part of cooking. That's part of why I don't love cooking in a slow cooker. I have done it, and I will do it because sometimes it's just easy. But if I brown the meat, then I may as well do it on the stovetop. And if I don't brown the meat, it loses a little bit of its magic. So I'm just going to start browning it here. And then as soon as we get a little bit of brown on one side, it's starting to brown, so I'll give it a moment more. Then I will add the garlic and the onions. All right. So this is just simmering. Now this is the chicken. The oil from the chicken will splash a little bit. So I don't recommend cooking naked. If you do, wear an apron. But just be careful of that because it will splatter a little bit. All right, I'm going to turn these over. Nice and brown. I'm absolutely using the wrong implement for this. I'll tell you that right now. I should be using tongs or even a fork would work. But you can make this work. Those ones aren't as brown as I'd like them to be, but they will be fine. Fine. That nice chicken. All right, now we're going to add onions. Garlic. Not the first time I've done that. And just stir it around and shake the pan as you're doing it. And that helps keep everything detached from the pan and just easy to move around. Okay. Oh, the smell already. So the next thing we're going to add is the spices. Now you need to add spices at this point because sauteing them a little bit and exposing them to the heat really releases the flavor. So in here we have 1 tablespoon of curry powder, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of cumin. Now this will absorb some of the oil and it'll start to be a little bit sticky, but it's fine. You'll see that the chicken gets a little coated. At this point, if you want, you can turn the temperature down a little bit, but in order to keep it from burning, you want to make sure that you keep it moving. So it's almost like you're stir frying it, right? At this point, I'm going to add the peppers. You can also add raisins, and you probably have some raisins left from the Cuban picadillo, so raisins would not be a bad addition. We're going to add a little bit of ginger. I use canned ginger or bottled ginger. For ginger, the bottle is absolutely fine. For garlic, it's a no. Remember, no garlic, but ginger is okay. All right, so we've got the spices have been activated, and we're going to add a cup of coconut milk. And that's pretty much our curry. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this simmer. I've got the temperature on 5 out of 9. We're going to let this simmer for a bit, and we'll come back to it. I've added a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of black pepper. Awesome. Okay, so we've got it reduced. The chicken is cooked. The sauce you can see is thickening up. Like I said, I like it saucy, so you can reduce it further to get it thicker, but I think that this is sufficient. And we've been reducing this for about 10 minutes. 10 or 15 minutes should be sufficient. The chicken is definitely cooked. Now, at this point, I will talk to you a little bit about the things that you can add to modify your curry. At this point, I'll talk about the things you can add to modify your curry. I really like to add dried apricots chopped up. Raisins are good. You can put some tomato in here for sure, gives it a little bit more reddish color. Apple works. Fruit is good in it. But you can definitely add mushrooms or more peppers. You could add zucchini. You can really improvise and sort of add the type of things you like. But let's turn this off and serve it. I have my rice that I made. Remember, we did a module on the rice, so you know how to make rice. You're already an expert at rice. We've got a nice bowl. Take a little bit of rice, and some people put it beside. I always put my curry on top of my rice. It's just the way I like to serve it. A little mound in the middle. All right. Give that one last stir before I serve it. Looks so good. And I'm just going to spoon up the chicken, some of the sauce. There we go. We'll leave that. And there you have an amazing